Yes, welcome to the No State Project live from the fortified compound in Mesa, Arizona. Glad to be with everybody today. It is actually episode 89 of the big show. Brought to you today, of course, by Christopher in California. Appreciate the support. We're going to have that issue again, but I appreciate the support there. Also, good friend Bill in New Hampshire. Do appreciate the support. If you'd like to help support the big show, it is greatly appreciated. You can go to markstevens.net and donate there. Every bit, really does help keep the show going. I do appreciate that. To do commercial-free edition of the No State Project every week here on Wednesday, which we are from 3 to 5 Pacific Standard Time. 3 to 4 Pacific Standard Time. And then we also do tomorrow. Tomorrow we're not going to be doing a role playing. I don't think we have anybody available. And I will not be live this Saturday. And so I don't think I'm going to be recording on Friday. I'll be out of town. But I definitely will be back live on next Wednesday. So if you want to join me on the big show today, 218-632-9399, 218-632-9399. The passcode is 2020 with the #. You can also Skype me at Frank Rizzo 3. But do not call using Skype. But you can instant message me first, and then we'll get you up on the big broadcast that way. But the preferred way is, like I have in the show notes on YouTube, 218-632-9399. And so when we're talking about anarchy, getting to a volunteer society, government abuse, and defending yourself effectively in court. And just real briefly, anarchy. Not meaning no rules, no rulers, no ruling class. That we reject the concept that it is okay to lie, steal, kill, and cheat other people just because you call yourself a government. And, kind of ties into what today I was working with somebody. I don't have any recordings to release because they're under the gun here. And so we wouldn't want to see any retaliation. That's why. So you're just going to get my firsthand report. And if somebody wants to just reject the entire thing out of hand and say, well, that's just hearsay. All right. I'm not going to debate with you there. It actually is. I was on a phone call with tax agents today, and but there's nothing necessarily groundbreaking and different than the other call of shames that I have posted, especially with tax agents. It's really it's a lot of times the difference is the demeanor of the agent, especially when they're confronted with a lack of evidence to support their claims there. So as far as not being a credible resource, that even though I had personal firsthand knowledge, if they look, be a skeptic, that's great. But you got to weigh this against all the other calls that I have posted, which are, of course, direct evidence that you don't have to take my word on it. But I'm working with property taxes, and admittedly, I don't do nearly as many property tax cases as income tax because, well, the income tax is not one, the process takes a lot longer if you're eventually going to lose. If you do wind up losing, it doesn't typically, it can, but it doesn't typically mean that the immediate selling of your home, where property tax is a little more dicey in that, you could lose your home. So that's why I always recommend paying it on the protest. Even if they don't have a leg to stand on, even when they admittedly don't have any evidence whatsoever to support their claims, pay it anyway, and then we'll fight it administratively. We'll do the appeal, and if we have to, then it gets appealed to court, which is what we're going to be doing here because the deadline is next week, and it's not something that's going to be resolved in less than a week. It would be nice, but that's typically not how these things go. So really different responses from the first I spoke to a tax agent. It was these are different counties, property tax, different counties, And the first agent that I spoke to, once we got to, and just a little background there, we already know in advance they're typically going to send you to the so you call the tax collector, the treasurer, county treasurer, and they will send you to the assessor. So if we know in advance that's what they're going to do, why continue to do that? Well, just like with my second call today and what's happened here in Phoenix, you sometimes get the State Department two-step. When it starts to come out that they don't know what the hell they're talking about, they don't have any actual evidence, then one of the go-to moves that they use is to say, well, I'm not responsible for this anyway. Yeah, I just get coffee here. I'm barely on the radar screen, just getting coffee. Yeah, even though a few minutes ago you were absolutely confident that your claims of taxation and jurisdiction were absolutely 100% true. So that's why we do that. We want to be able to show bad faith later, and we want to be able to document so-and-so told me on this day I had to go to the assessor's office. So I'll get to where that went sour on the second call, because I tell you, forcing people to give you money is, never having to take responsibility for your claims. What's it mean? It was this guy. What does it matter what jackass over here says? He just gets coffee. I don't even know his name. The best people, but this particular one, no, we barely knew him. Barely knew him. He just started and he's done nothing but get coffee. So this first agent, very, very confident. And I'll go through how, it's a very easy process. And those who are new, we're just asking questions. Remember, the burden of proof is on the one who's making the claim. So when they turn around and you ask them for facts to support their claim, and they say, well, do you have any evidence it's not true? Well, first of all, we don't have the burden. You're making the claim. So it's something I was talking to with the client today, how they will actually admit, and you've heard it on the Call of Shames. If not, go to markstevens.net, listen to the Call of Shames, right from the horse's mouth. They will turn around and they'll say, my claim is true, but I don't need any evidence to prove it's true. You need evidence to disprove it. I'm like, wait a minute. Let's get one thing straight. You can't prove your claim is true. Again, just saying it doesn't make it true, right? Because that would go for me too. So if you can't prove your claim, I don't need any counter evidence. I don't need a counter argument other than you can't prove your case. See, it's what I talked about before many times, where they try to flip the burden of proof on you. No, this is a dick move, and they will try. It doesn't matter where you're involved. They will try to get away with that kind of crap. But especially in tax and traffic, that is their go-to douche move, flipping the burden of proof. You got to prove that it's wrong. No, you have to have, at least at this level, a prima facie. You have to have some facts that, if taken as true, have some possibility of proving your claim is true. Just the slightest little bit of possibility there. But they got nothing. So what we want to be able to do, again, you want them to verify their actual position, because you don't want them coming out later and saying, straw man. They're going to do it. They could do it anyway. But you want to make sure you can read their words back to them. That's why I let them know. Well, let me write that down. So I had to confirm, you guys operate under the presumption that if the property is physically in Arizona, it wasn't Arizona, I'm just saying that the property is physically in Arizona, then your laws apply and you have jurisdiction and authority to do an assessment that could then be turned into do an appraisal and assessment that the tax collector will use to take my, to tax me. Yes. They're absolutely certain that that is true. If the property is physically in Arizona or California or Alberta, then their magical rules called laws apply to them. She's very confident. Yes, that's the way it works. So, next question is, what facts? Now, we are able to ask an open-ended question like that because we already know there are no facts. It's just a written instrument. That's all it is. Written, just a piece of paper. Written instrument like this, right? So that's why we can ask an open-ended question. If you want, you can formulate a good leading question. But here we've got them. Once they commit to an untenable position, it's just a matter of holding their feet to the fire and having them be responsive to the actual question. That's why you're asking for facts. So I asked her, well, what facts? What facts? So instead of being responsive to the question, she provided a legal citation. Well, that would be, let's just say, Prop 200. Prop 200. Prop 200 amended the Constitution. I said, aren't you presupposing that the Constitution applies in the first place by citing a section? Yeah. So she agreed that she was making an assumption. No one needs facts of due process violations. Of course, you got to have facts to show a due process violation. Could be such as, maybe I'm just jumping into the conversation here, but Eric is saying that no one needs facts of due process violations. If you don't know them, you lose. You have to have facts to show a due process violation. You have to show, that, for example, that the judge, by his words and deeds, let's say, denied effective cross-examination. Let's say you ask 2 questions, the judge freaks out and ends the cross-examination right there. Those are facts. Those support the contention that due process was violated. We don't get to just say due process was violated and it's automatically true. That's what bureaucrats do. They make legal claims and don't have any underlying facts. I would not suggest to anybody that you can make a due process claim and a successful due process claim without showing the underlying facts. What did the judge say? What did the judge do? What did the prosecution do? For example, it could be such as a Brady violation, where Tom and the Big D is right, man. That Kathleen Zellner on Making a Murderer, holy crap, she's got some serious Brady violations in there. So you know that judge is compromised if she was not able to be successful on that motion. Anyway, I do recommend that. So if for due process violation as far as Brady, then you can show that the prosecution knew, and you have facts to show this, the prosecution knew that they had exculpatory evidence. Let's say that they knew the witness did not have personal firsthand knowledge. And one of the things we can use is their own objection to prove that. And that they put the witness on the stand anyway. So if you have facts, they knew the witness didn't have personal knowledge, they put him on the stand anyway over my objection. Those facts, taken as true, show that you have a Brady violation because they were required to give you that information. They were required to do that. They were required to say and not put that witness on the stand, but they do it anyway. So you have to have the underlying facts. So just as the prosecution or anyone else has to have facts to support their conclusion, so do we. We're not exempt from that, which is why so many times on the show, if somebody calls up with one of these name game things, some patriot thing, I start asking questions. Where's the damn evidence? Where is the proof that they're actually charging you? And pulling out Black's Law Dictionary from 80 years ago is not proof that that's how they're charging you. See, the two just don't follow. It's like trying to claim that some papal bull from 1,000 years ago is governing all of world affairs today. Yeah, there are actually people that claim that. I don't know what is crazier, a papal bull or a document from 1,000 years ago is being used to control the entire world, or this QAnon bull that says that Donald Trump is playing 4D chess and is actually working with Mueller. Wow. Wow. Oh man, we have got to stick to the facts. Okay, so that's how it's so easy to tear apart and show show these experienced tax agents. I want to point out that she wasn't neither one of these tax agents were being jerks. They cut the conversation short, but they were professional throughout. And I think that's important to recognize and why it's important for us. We need to be treating them the way we want to be treated, whether you think they deserve it or not. That's how we should act. We should always act responsible and respectful. Because I got to tell you, I don't know anybody who likes having their worldview challenged and doing it done publicly like that. So consider that you're in their situation, that someone out of the blue that you have never spoken to before, you've never even heard the name before, you have no idea who this person on the phone is, and they call you up and they're challenging you. First, you want them to be respectful. You want to be treated the way you want to be treated. And you don't want them to be condescending. You don't want one of these, oh, he's just leading me to our gotcha moment. No, you have to be professional. You have to be rational, reasonable, and treat them the way they want to be treated. That's why I can usually say to them, I can say, have I treated you disrespectfully or unprofessionally during this call? And I said, well, no, of course not. I said, well, then I expect that you would treat me with the same level of professionalism I'm treating you. And that's usually enough for them to act professional. Oh, okay, yeah, you're right. You're right. Because they are people. Oh, of course, judges, for the most part, are far gone. Okay, so to get back to this, she is agreeing that the foundation of her assessment, which is that the laws apply because the property is physically in Arizona, she is admitting that that is an assumption. And then she kind of, I think, was feigning a bit that she really didn't understand what my position was, what my objection was to the assessment. And I said, well, you just admitted that the very foundation of your assessment was an assumption. That's my problem. That's what I'm taking issue with. She didn't understand why somebody would take issue with that and not the actual amount of the assessment. So, well, wouldn't you agree that if you can't show the foundation that you have any jurisdiction, that the numbers you came up with the value of the house or the property, that's not even relevant yet? She didn't want to discuss that, and she didn't want to discuss what my actual argument was. My position was that, and that making an assumption under their rules is not reasonable and rational, and they don't have a presumption of correctness. And that they haven't met their burden unless it's reasonable and rational. They don't at least get the initial prima facie burden is not overcome. It's not, they don't get a presumption of correctness. It has to be reasonable and rational, and making an assumption doesn't cut that. So I again asked her, do you believe that having the foundation of your claim being an assumption, which you admit is an assumption fair and consistent with due process? And that's where she cut it. That was the end of it. She wasn't being a jerk. She didn't slam the phone down, but that was the end. She had had enough. And because just like the other agent that I spoke to in California, when he admitted it was an assumption that the laws applied, and I was asking, is that reasonable and rational? He wouldn't discuss it. That was it. So again, props to this agent for being professional and just not wanting to speak anymore. And she did go to the bureaucrat route, put it in writing, because she was still feigning that she didn't understand my actual argument. I'm like, well, I think, but I was trying to be nice, and I think it's pretty easy. You're making an assumption, and that's not fair. Now, if you disagree, just say you think making an assumption is fair and consistent with due process, and I can go to a follow-up question. But to cut it off there and say put it in writing, that is usually a dick move. That when you're on the phone and you're asking them the questions, and they say, but put it in writing. Okay, I think I used Rob Ford before as whoa, put your question in writing so I can ignore it later. That's usually what it comes down to. But she at least said she's very interested in really understanding my position and why I had an objection to the assessment. All I can do is repeat what I've already just said. So we'll put it in writing. And unfortunately, because of next week, he's going to have to pay initially, and then we have to take this evidence and use it in the appeal. And so because we know the first and last name, we know the office they worked on. Remember, this is not income tax, so we know who it is. If it gets to the administrative level, we have even an informal type of hearing, we can call her as a witness about what transpired during the phone call. Because look, the fact not appearing is presumed not to exist. And it's not that I have to it's my, and it wouldn't be if you were doing this, it's not our base assertion. It's just not a blanket assertion. They go, well, you don't have evidence. We have her admission on the record. It was an assumption. She admitted it. Why? Because that's the truth. That's the truth. So I don't get the impression, like with this first agent, that she is completely, she's never been challenged before. She was very confident until the end, and until she cut it off. The next agent, which was about 15, 20 minutes later, I think this is the first time that his worldview was challenged like this. I don't think he'd ever heard anything like this before. Now, we had spoken to one agent, and all right, so what happened was we called the tax collector, and they, again, like everybody else, they say, you got to go to the assessor. They're the ones that assessed it, and we just are doing the tax bill. Okay. As if the tax collector, and I asked him, so if you're confronted with a situation where you have no evidence of jurisdiction to proceed against somebody, you still can't stop? It still is in the hands of the assessor who's not actually trying to collect? Yep. Yeah, see, that's because if you're not a statist, that must mean you fell off a Christmas tree, that you're so stupid that you can buy something like that. Yeah, I'm supposed to. The tax collector can be confronted with absolute proof that they have no jurisdiction to proceed, but it's the assessor that has to pull the plug. I can't buy this. Malfatti. No, Malfatti. It just isn't. It's not washing. I'm not going to buy this. So anyway, we get to the assessor's office and we speak to an individual there, and he throws his hands up. He admits, again, we go through the process the same as before. Do you agree that your agency operates under the presumption that if the property is physically in Arizona, then your laws apply? Yeah. So then when you ask him, oh, what facts, if any, do you rely on to prove that your Constitution applies? Just because the property is physically in Arizona. And that's, whoa. He said, I'm not your guy. Not your guy. I said, you're going to have to speak to one of the assistant, deputy or one of the deputy chiefs. There's no, I said, I can't do it. Can't do it. All right. Knew he was in over his head. Knew the statement he just made was dead wrong. And kicked the can. I've barely started here, sir. I haven't even gotten to the coffee machine yet. Okay. I have nothing to do with this agency. I just started. They don't even know my name. Don't even know who I am. So he sends me to, we get to somebody else. And again, I'm one of the things I'm asking and why they're going, is maybe I should have mentioned this. We want to know who has the authority to abate an erroneous assessment. And that's why the tax collector sends me to the assessor. So we get to one of the chiefs at the assessor's office. And I'm asking him who has the authority there to abate an erroneous assessment. And he says, oh, you got to go to the tax collector. So, well, I just spoke with Kevin, and Kevin said that the assessor's office That's why I was talking to Kevin. Well, yeah, that's why I was talking to Kevin. So-and-so at the tax collector's office told me I had to speak to Kevin, and that's why they transferred me to Kevin at the assessor's office. Now, you're contradicting what Kevin and the tax collector said. Okay, so he was a little more open. He was a little more open to talking, and he wanted to know what I had spoken with, the other tax assessor about, and regarding why we think that the tax assessment should be abated. And he said, I repeated the question, and he says, well, I got to tell you, asking cryptic questions like this, and I just, it's something that you can maybe email me the questions, and I'll answer that way. And so I figured, since when he threw in cryptic questions, I knew I had my foot in the door, that it wasn't going to be, just put it in writing and bada boom, bada bing. That was it. So I wrote down cryptic question because I wanted to get back to that when he was done telling me about his email address and this and the other thing and everything but answering the questions. So I said, well, I said, I think it'll see that the questions were cryptic. I think it was very straightforward. And I think because, Kevin couldn't answer, that's why he wanted to kick it up to you. And so I just went right into the question. I said, does this, this doesn't sound cryptic to me. Wouldn't you agree, like Kevin, that you operate under the presumption that if the property is physically in Arizona, then your laws apply and give you jurisdiction to do an assessment? And he said, well, yeah, that's right. And I wanted to say, see, there's nothing cryptic in that. All I want you to do is confirm what we already know, how you operate. We're not doing anything like what some people will do. Oh, the name in all caps. No, we get them to admit first exactly how they are operating. And that is how they operate. Now, nothing else is necessary, I think. According, you can listen to the Call of Shames, and you can see we've had success with property taxes. I've posted it. I've talked about it. In fact, Mike called the show about it. You don't have, just taking that claim, since it cannot be proven to be true, is enough to get these things defeated. So now that I had my foot in the door and he was answering the question and no longer trying to claim that the questions were cryptic, then I could move forward to facts. What facts actually prove that your Constitution, a written instrument, actually applies and creates obligations, as well as giving you jurisdiction. And that's where things started. There's just long pauses. He had nothing. I dug deep, Jerry, and I got nothing. Again, props to this guy. He was not a dick about this, because maybe it's Thanksgiving. It's that week. I really don't like the idea. And maybe at one point I got something, especially when someone's being hurt. But I think the idea of us going and questioning them in a way to humiliate them, while that may get some people a lot of views, I frown on that, because I don't want to be treated that way. Okay? I mean, that's not a comfortable place to be in, to have your worldview challenged and to have thought that you're the good guy. Yeah, but the money that we collect, it goes to pay for roads, it goes for libraries, it goes to the fire. You look at the unbelievable damage in Paradise, California from the fires. It's like a movie. It's just, it's terrible, terrible. So, it's not my intention. My intention is not to humiliate an agent. I don't think it. It's something I learned from, although I haven't been as consistent, from Jerry Spence. One of the things that Jerry Spence wrote and speaks about is to never take the dignity of the witness away. So, and I know it's difficult to separate these. I get it. It's part of someone's identity, but we have to be looking at just taking apart the argument, not the man and his dignity. I know, but with bureaucrats, that argument is tied up into their identity. So it's different. But they have to see themselves as, I forget exactly who did it, but they, an English comedy troupe, and it had to do where they were Nazis in the middle of the war. And so the question is, are we the baddies? And it starts to dawn on you at that realization, like putting all this aside about the roads and the libraries and the fire. You're looking at the homes being taken by force. You got people going to jail. You have people being shot and beaten, for driver's license, this and that. And so when you're asked, you kind of get the impression with this call that in his mind, that's what he's thinking. Right? Oh no, are we the baddies? And it doesn't do us any good to hammer that away and try to humiliate them. And I don't think I came off that way. And I just let him be as, I guess I did this. I let him be as uncomfortable as necessary to get the object of the call, which was to get the assessment thrown out, or at least get the evidence I needed in order to justify an abatement. And I believe I got that. I'm pretty certain that I did get that. But if you're not familiar with the phrase a pregnant pause, it's extremely uncomfortable. I think it's uncomfortable. It's very cringy, at least for me. I know how uncomfortable this person is, even though he's just some guy on the phone that I may never speak to again, or I'm certainly never going to meet in person. But to me, it's like watching David Brent, on The Office. It's just so cringy. And you feel so bad for the guy, but you can't say anything. It's like one of those cardinal rules of sales. When you ask that big question, when you're going to close and you ask that big question, the first one who speaks, in a sense, loses. So you just have to sit there with this 15-minute silence. Mute the mic or something. Just keep your mouth shut. And this happened like 4 times. And it got to where he used what is now becoming more and more common with these property tax issues. And that is, he leaned on counsel. And he said he was not comfortable. He did not want to answer any more of my questions without counsel present, county counsel. I'm like, wow. Let me explain. This particular individual was one of the head people for the tax assessment, for the assessor's office. This is not a low-level guy that just, kicked it up. This is not the guy who they barely know his name and he just gets coffee. Who the hell is this guy? Who hired? No, this is an important guy. Just like the first woman that we spoke to in a different county, she was one of the deputy assessor. This was not just some coffee getting schmuck. And I can't help but think that they are having one of these moments. Are we the baddies? At the least, they're thinking, I've done this job to a point where I'm one of the top people here. I'm upper management. I'm important. I'm making a difference. And then some schmuck from Long Island asks a question, is this how you guys operate? Yep. Can you prove that that's true? I'm trying to mimic that awkward pause. I want, and then to go from being so sure of yourself to being so unsure, you're not even comfortable speaking to me without counsel present. Wow. Think about that. With 2 questions. This is why, this is why I talk so much about how effective the Socratic method is. and why it's so effective to go in as a skeptic, not giving them an inch. We cannot accept that their position is true. We cannot, and still be effective. Because what they want to do is they want to talk about the amount. But the amount is not relevant yet. But to have been so confident before, and for to have really just one question gut your confidence, not just your argument, but my gosh, your confidence. You're not even, I mean, I've been asked tough questions on the show, and in the heat of the moment, you gotta actually use your brain. That's why it helps to know what your position is before you say it publicly. Know what you're talking about on that particular issue. Research. Be a skeptic. So here, just asking for those facts. Now, of course, it does help when we come at it from an anarchist standpoint, because we're already just looking at the facts and not accepting the conclusion from them of what those facts mean. See, to us, normal, rational people, we understand that if you force people to give you money, if you force strangers to give you money, it doesn't matter what your pretense is for what you're going to do with the money. Forcing strangers to give you money is criminal. It is wrong. It is immoral. And it will not create obligations on somebody. And knowing and using that when we go in. So what makes it, I believe, is why it has been so consistently effective regardless of where we are. This is why we're effective in England, because it's the same thing. I've asked them, and they've told me, Helen in England, in Sussex, hit them pretty hard on that, and at a and she was awarded costs against them. So we can do that because it's the same stupid claim, and the same claim is based on the same set of irrefutable facts, and as that they are men. Government doesn't exist. They're just men and women forcing us to give the money. That is what destroys their argument. That is what destroys their claim. Like when they say, well, the people voted on the Constitution. No. First of all, the state constitution, that's just wrong. It's just wrong. They voted for one constitution, and only a certain number of rich white Europeans got to vote on that one. No women, no poor. The important thing is you didn't have a vote on whether there was going to be a government or not. So that destroys any idea or any claim or argument that their constitutional laws apply. Does it help to say, well, why don't you just get in your car and F and move? No, that doesn't cure the violence. Is rape any less rape because you say you could have just left? Yeah, he was pinning you down, but you could have left. Blaming the victim. That's why it's so important, why I stress so much. Use the Socratic method, use logic, use the tools that the philosophers and the Greeks that have given us, the scientists, for 2,000 years. Use those tools because it destroys their arguments. This stuff about the name game, the name in all caps and signing UCC. But fungal with this stuff. That's why I have on the website so many examples of this that people have called, the few critics have called the show. I asked one, a very persistent one, straight up, does my physical presence in Arizona, being physically in Arizona, does that prove the Constitution or a written instrument applies to me in any way? No, it doesn't, and it can't. Cannot. So why would somebody want to go through all this other stuff in an attempt to destroy an argument, which is what you're trying to do, okay? Why go through all this mental gymnastics, all this stuff like what Clint Richardson tried doing with me with that verbal diarrhea and going on literally sometimes for 8 minutes or more, when all you need to do is to show that the facts contradict their argument. or just ask them to prove their claim. That's what I do. So we have the two things there. The facts contradict their claim because they're just men and women forcing us to pay them. And two, from that, if we just ask them to prove that their claim is true, they can't. They can't. How many times have I said on the show? Well, I do appreciate a lot, Brian's, the new subs. Maybe you haven't heard this. So if you search on my website, markstevens.net, I confront Scott Bales, who's the sitting Supreme Court Chief Justice here in Arizona. Asked him point blank. He agreed if I'm physically in Arizona, the laws apply. When asked for proof of that, evidence, facts, he said the other people that they put in prison. I'm not kidding. I have HD video of that. I almost didn't have audio. Thank goodness someone at the school recorded that, or I would not have had audio. I wanted to, I couldn't believe it when I just was astounded because I had already missed all of the audio from a tremendous interview with the city attorney, well, questioning anyway, a short interview with the city attorney in Scottsdale, Arizona, admitting he couldn't prove the laws apply. Didn't think he had to. Didn't get any of the damn audio from that. And the same damn tech issue with the Supreme Court Chief Justice. But because ASU recorded it, I was able to download the audio and sync it up to my video, which good. So, so I have bureaucrats of all stripes, including a federal magistrate, admitting that the application of federal law is arbitrary. There are no facts. They're just assuming that, which is like what these agents said to me today. So knowing that they don't have any evidence whatsoever to support their claim, why try to build some Byzantine type of argument or counter argument rather to disprove that? And when if you are just putting in an argument and you don't have substantial facts to support that against their argument, it doesn't matter that they have no facts to support. Whose argument do you think is going to win here? You are not going, even if you're right about the name game, and there's a multi-million-dollar treasury account over here. Do you have any chance of using that with success? And the reason why the people who promote that stuff do not have court documents showing it's been successful is because it hasn't been successful. And I don't buy for a second, but they scrubbed the docket. No, because you still have copies of it. You had to have been informed. Your documents still prevail. You can then show fraud on the part of the clerk because you can show a docket number stamped from that court and there's no record of it. Doesn't go to court without a record. You got a record of something. Now, I do know that there can be examples where a friend of mine recently, this happened, where they were falsely arrested, where the federal court had no business ordering somebody's arrest. It had not been, that was deliberately not affirmed on the part of the Court of Appeals. They had him arrested anyway. Now, there's a record of this at the federal level. Oh, yeah. There's no record of the arrest at all at the jail. But if something goes through court, you're going to have a record. You're going to have a, so I think it's, and I'm saying this because I still have people contact me who are telling me, and they're looking for help and they want to know how to do this and that. And they give me a short summary because, walls of text, delete. And they're using UCC. I signed at UCC. I did this and the name and the this and the name, they get all caps and this. And everyone I question about that, the best they can do to show that that is valid is I read it on the internet or I saw something about capitis de minimis in blacks. I said, but do you have any actual proof? That's how they're charging you. I'll even humorize, not that I want this to be done, but I said, look, if you have to satisfy yourself, you can ask them, why is my name in all caps? Is that significant at all? Is that something I need to defend against? Because at least at the bottom line is, if you have proof that it is and he lied, now you've got a Brady violation because it was evidence being used against you that was not disclosed. I wouldn't use it. I wouldn't use it. If you can go in and you can shut down the entire conversation by asking a few questions. Why? Why? And you have to question why people are selling this crap. Oh, well, it's to make money. There's a sucker born every minute. And what really hurts is when you get someone who is under stress and says, well, I can't lose. I can't have this. I don't want this and that. I don't want the record. I can't have this. I could go to jail. And I want to throw everything at them. And that is a very bad way to go. Because guilt by association, or poisoning the well. Why do you think that they turn around and they'll say to me, you're a sovereign citizen? What part of anarchist did you miss? So they lump you in as a sovereign citizen as a way of negating or being able to ignore all of your arguments. And so if that's not why they're doing it, then, you know, I have no idea. That's the only one that makes sense. And I based it on, I've been told that by prosecutors. I've been told that by tax agents. And in fact, in California, it's actually part of their official policy to not listen to anyone that they label a tax protester. The official policy is not to respond to you. So, yeah, I'm not just making up this. So a complaint may be, well, yeah, but Mark, if you're just challenging them and they're still calling you this, why not? Because when they do it to me, now I got evidence of bad faith. I can show that they falsified the record. Now, unfortunately, there was at least one jury in Ohio, I think it was Ohio, that let it go. Let it go. Even the prosecutor on appeal, when they're seeking sanctions, you mean like, well, the defendant didn't actually say anything that would be connected to the sovereign citizen movement, but because he was saying that the traffic stop involved violence, it's similar. Like, wait a minute. The traffic stop, like all traffic stops, does involve violence. That's what it's called, the force continuum. Force continuum. So the violence is, so he makes, and this is something that we argued, because he actually states the facts, you have to smear him and without saying it directly, accuse him of being a domestic terrorist. Yeah. So when they do it to us, at least we can show bad faith. It's just like, again, with the IRS saying, or the Franchise Tax Board, they said that my argument was, you didn't prove that there was income. Nobody said that. So you can get on the phone. I had to call a shame up. Where in that one-page appeal did you see me argue that the Franchise Tax Board is wrong in the assessment because they never proved that income? They said, well, you said that it was the income was only reported because the company wanted to avoid going to jail. Yeah, is that factually accurate? Is that the same as saying that no income was shown? See, this is where you can even own the word income, and they still it doesn't help them at all because they can't prove jurisdiction. Whether you had the income or not under any name is completely irrelevant if they can't prove their initial claim of jurisdiction. That's why I say relevance is king. The amount of money from a California source is completely 100% irrelevant and inadmissible until you prove the Constitution applies and creates the obligation. Until that point, the amount of money, completely irrelevant. Completely irrelevant. That's why they have to assume. And making an assumption does not give you relevance. First, make your point A to then prove the relevance of point B. And if you don't prove point A, if all you do is assume, because it's not rational, reasonable and rational, then it's not admissible. Not admissible. Not even close. You do not have a presumption of correctness, which to them, in tax cases, let me tell you, that presumption of correctness in their mind is that it was actually written by the hand of Odin himself with the approval of Zeus. That's what it is. Please do not, please do not promote Alex Jones on my YouTube channel. I will start blocking anybody who promotes Alex Jones on this show. Not interested. Don't want to hear about it. And you know what? Kind of like my frog's gay anyway. So that's that. Oh, well, we're just about out of time. So hopefully, at least the people that are listening to the show and have been listening are going to at least put the same level of scrutiny on people like Alex Jones and those selling these name games, common law, admiralty type stuff, UCC, and critically analyze that stuff. Because you have to do, there's two parts to that. And I believe my work speaks for itself. The evidence is there that I can show both standards have been met. One, does the argument make sense? Does it, do the propositions support the conclusion? Do the facts support the ultimate conclusion? That's very important. So you have to critically analyze the arguments and the claims that these people are making, whether it's the Franchise Tax Board or it's Alex Jones or it's Carl Lentz or somebody else, Winston Shrout, whoever happens to be, Clint Richardson. Although with Clint, there's so much volume there, you're better off just walking away. That is like a gold mine of Gish Gallops. But we want to examine both the same way, with the same critical eye. So if it passes logical examination, the facts are there, the logic is, gosh, it's sound. It's good, it's good, it's good. The next thing is, has there been any success with that strategy? Any success that can be documented and shown? Yes, I will be the first one. Yeah, just because a judge may not agree with it doesn't mean that the argument and the facts are not sound. I get it. They're corrupt, they're criminals, and they're criminals because they force people to give the money. There should be some evidence of success when you are promoting it as an effective strategy to defend yourself. And that is what they're doing. It's like this quantum grammar stuff. Wow. Oh my gosh. Show me where it has successfully backed off of a bureaucrat. Show me the proof. Show me the evidence. That's what's missing. So to summarize, this is just today 2 more examples of how easy it is to analyze and destroy someone's argument with just a few questions. Don't take the burden upon yourself. The burden is on the one who makes the accusation. And we know when they say, well, what evidence do you have? It's not true. We know what we've got them. They're trying to flip the burden. And if they say something like that to you, you can just answer because you'll have actual evidence. What I do is, you just admitted it was an assumption, or you are not able to prove your claim is true. Those are my facts. I wrote down what you said. Those are my facts. I asked you right in front of an entire law school audience. And I asked you if the laws apply just because I'm physically in Arizona. You said yes. Then when I asked you for facts to prove that that was true, you said, oh, everybody else you put in that you put in prison. Those are my facts. Those are the facts to show that you cannot support your claim, that your claim has not been proven true. So we want to have the facts to support our position, and we're not going to allow them to have any sacred cows. So I do appreciate everyone tuning in. I don't know if we hit a record today, but I got to tell you, I think we did. So thanks to the new subs, people watching, and of course to Brian with high impact blog for having that video of my work and referring people to the channel. This has been episode 89 of the No State Project, brought to you today by Bill in New Hampshire, and of course Christopher in California, who's called into the show. Appreciate that. If you want to help support the big show, you may do so at markstevens.net. I'm sorry that I will not be live on Saturday, but the next time we will be live will be on the this Wednesday broadcast. So till then, salud.